1 in 3 Americans opposed independence from Britain. Their stories were erased until now. Meet the forgotten Loyalists hunted, lynched, and exiled for refusing to join the revolution. In 1776, the American colonies were not a united front waving the stars and stripes. Beneath the cries of liberty, a silent civil war festered. Patriots, often wealthy merchants and landowners, clashed with Loyalists, working-class farmers, shopkeepers, and tavern owners who saw the British crown as their shield against chaos. Many were black, indigenous, or poor whites, clinging to their small plots of land, fearing Patriot land grabs would strip them bare. In New York alone, 60% of Loyalists were tradesmen, not powdered wig aristocrats. They weren't blind to the crown's flaws, but they saw stability in empire, not rebellion. A cooper in Philadelphia scrawled in his ledger, "Revolution means my barrels rot unsold." For them, the fight wasn't for freedom, it was for survival. The air grew thick with tension as patriot fervor turned brutal. Liberty or death wasn't just a slogan. It was a threat. Mobs roamed Boston and Charleston, dragging Loyalists from their homes. The smell of molasses and tar clung to the streets as men and women were stripped, coated in scalding pitch, and feathered like livestock. In Albany, a printer named James Rivington watched musket but smash his press, ink pooling like blood on the floor. His crime? Publishing a pamphlet questioning rebellion. Further north, Mohawk villages burned. Patriot militias torched their cornfields, the acrid stench of charred wheat choking the valleys. Joseph Brant, a Mohawk leader, stood amid the ashes and spoke words that echoed through the Iroquois nation. "You speak of liberty while burning our cornfields." 1 in 4 Iroquois would die in these raids, their lands carved up by patriot speculators. The violence peaked in Pennsylvania's Wyoming Valley, July 1778. 300 Loyalist families, farmers, weavers, and blacksmiths, had carved out a fragile life along the Susquehanna River. They refused to swear allegiance to the Continental Congress, clinging to their oath to the crown. Patriot militias, backed by land-hungry speculators, descended. The Wyoming massacre left fields soaked in blood. Men were scalped, children clubbed, homes reduced to embers. Survivors fled into the wilderness, eating tree bark to survive the winter. A Loyalist woman, Mary Gould, hid in a cave with her infant. Her diary, later found, described the crackle of flames and the screams of neighbors. "My dowry, my wedding ring, they melted into bullets. Those bullets killed my kin." The massacre wasn't just slaughter. It was a message. Dissent meant annihilation. But the darkest secret wasn't the violence. It was who profited. Across the colonies, patriot leaders eyed Loyalist lands, orchards, mills, and pastures. Confiscation ledgers, meticulous as tax rolls, listed properties seized. In Virginia, Thomas Jefferson's allies claimed a Loyalist tobacco plantation. In New York, John Adams penned a letter, later buried in archives. Loyalist property seizures are our revolution's fuel. The rebellion wasn't just about ideals. It was a machine, grinding Loyalist homes into wealth for the new elite. A French spy, embedded in Philadelphia, noted the hypocrisy. They cry taxation without representation, yet tax their neighbors' loyalty with ruin. For some, loyalty to Britain promised freedom. Black Loyalists, thousands strong, saw a path out of chains. Britain offered liberty to slaves of patriot masters who joined their ranks. In Charleston, a man named Boston King fled his enslaver, a patriot rice planter, to fight for the crown. He wasn't alone. 3,000 black Loyalists took up arms, believing Britain's promise. But victory brought betrayal. When the war ended, patriots hunted these men and women, dragging them back to plantations. In Savannah, a black Loyalist named Sarah was re-enslaved, her British-issued freedom papers torn apart. Her owner, a patriot congressman, smirked as he chained her. "Your king's promise means nothing here." The revolution's liberty was selective, its chains reserved for those who chose the wrong side. Far from the battlefields, a child's diary surfaced in Nova Scotia, its pages brittle but legible. Elizabeth, age 10, wrote in 1780, "Mama said we're traitors, but we just wanted to keep our farm. Her family, Loyalist tenant farmers from New Jersey, fled after patriots burned their barn. The smell of scorched hay lingered in her memory, as did the crunch of their boots on the frozen St. Lawrence River as they trekked to Canada. Elizabeth's words captured the Loyalist plight. Not traitors, but families caught in a war that branded them enemies. Their homes, left behind, became ghost towns. By the 1820s, travelers in upstate New York described eerie landscapes. Stone chimneys standing like gravestones where Loyalist villages once thrived, their timbers long since torched. The war's end in 1783 brought no peace for the Loyalists. 80,000 were exiled, their names struck from community rolls as if they'd never existed. They boarded ships, their belongings reduced to what they could carry. In Jamaica, Loyalist farmers struggled on rocky soil, far from the fertile fields they'd lost. In Sierra Leone, Black Loyalists faced disease and hostile terrain, their promised haven a cruel mirage. In Canada, families like Elizabeth scratched out new lives in Nova Scotia's wilderness, their confiscated lands back home funding Washington's army. A New York ledger from 1784 listed a Loyalist's orchard sold to a Patriot general for a pittance. The general's name? Benedict Arnold, not yet a traitor in Patriot eyes. The Loyalist story wasn't one of villainy but of survival against a tide they couldn't stem. They were ordinary people, cobblers, midwives, Mohawk hunters, who saw their world upended. A Boston tavern keeper, writing in 1777, summed it up, "They call us enemies of liberty, but we only wish to live as we always had." Their voices, preserved in diaries, letters, and faded ledgers, tell of a revolution not just fought with muskets, but with betrayal, greed, and erasure. The Patriots won the war, but the Loyalists paid the price. Their homes, their freedom, their very place in history stolen. And yet, in the margins of old records, their truth endures, whispering through the cracks of a nation's founding myth.